Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Tonight is Monday, October 10th. Audra, can you have the record show that our city attorney, city planner, city engineer, all council members are present, along with our assistant city administrator and our city administrator. At this time, I'll ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first portion of the meeting is our open forum. This is the portion where you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak at this time?
My name is Jan Heedy Hooker. I live at 9360 Kading Circle, Otsego.
I'm Patricia Sipe, and I live at 9366 Kading Circle Northeast, Otsego.
And what was the last name?
Sipe, S-I-P-E.
And we are here as frustrated homeowners. We live on lots 8 and 9 in Riverwood National Golf Course, right not too far from the 9th tee box. My husband and I, we built our home in September of 2016, and we've had ongoing drainage problems. In 2017, we had a contractor come in, hired a contractor to come in, put in some drain tile. He said that was a temporary fix. Did that in 2019. We hired a contractor, put in helical piers because our deck was heaving. In 2020, we came home from Arizona, and the trim around our garage had started blowing out and damaged. In July of 2020, my husband died. And in 2021, I called Ron's office, and they sent out Charlie to look at the damage that was occurring at my house. And then I did get an email back from Brent saying that they felt like water was being trapped in the foundation, around the foundation, in the landscaping. The idea was to maybe put in more drain tile or re-landscape and so forth. Well, in 2020, that was in 2021, Patty has the same problem. So in 2021, we started calling contractors to come and look at our issues. And I do have some pictures here I should be sharing too. So they've got dates on the month. So we finally found a contractor this summer. So in September of this year, we signed a contract with the contractor to come in and put a 420-foot pipe in the ground with the drainage from our houses to the golf course holding pond. When the development was platted, there was a catch basin on the south end of our development. There's 11 houses along the west side of the east side of the golf course. And so there was no holding pond or nothing. So we contacted the golf course. The golf course gave us an easement to run the pipe to the golf course holding pond. We in turn had to install drain tile in our backyards, dig it all up. They dug down to the foundation. And I think it was 4 or 5 truckloads full of muck that they dug out of our basements, both of our basements. And so my frustration is, I guess, questions frustration to the city is, I think somebody had shared that in 2018, the city became aware that there was clay soil on the west side of the city and that they changed the requirements for builders contractors. I guess my question is, I built in 2016. Why wasn't that addressed? It, I, the expense, I'm going to have over $20,000 to fix my home and I have no recourse. And yes, I did do legal counsel. I seen 4 different attorneys and they all said because of the damage and the claim of what the total exposure would be, that save your money, fix your house because of legal action and what it would cost. To go back to the builder, that was not an option for us. And I won't go into that. But the way the construction laws are and so forth, it was not an option for us. So I'll let Patty share some of her.
We bought our, someone else built it in 2017 and we purchased it in 2019. And we were aware of some of the water problems because the builder was supposed to come back and do some maintenance work on it. Which he didn't do that fall when we moved in September 19, but he did come back in the spring and he put in helical piers under our deck, which when it hinged, it literally hinged probably a foot or better. It was crushing the siding on the house. So he did do that. And then it's hard to keep the date straight. Was it in 2022, this spring, we had more damage and I called him and of course he never responded and, there was no help from him. Just damage, the same as Jan on the corners of our houses. The water just froze and heaved up the sides of our houses and wrecked the siding and wrecked my pavers and wrecked her cement pad under the deck. And
I guess, the reason for us being here, I guess we would like to know what the city is doing going forward. I mean, I guess the city understands that on the west side of the city, it's clay. And so with my frustration and my expense, what is going to be done going forward? I don't want anybody to have to go through this, what we've gone through. And like I said, I think there's enough, nobody built out there from 2009 to 2015. And the building permits started flying out, handing out. And it's like, why wasn't some due diligence done? I mean, it's a low spot. And should a building permit ever been given on my property? I don't think so.
we had cattails growing in our backyards. There was so much water in the golf course and in our, and they weren't there when I moved in. And it's been dry. There's been a drought for 2 years. So we spent a lot of money fixing the problem that should have been put in. The pipe work should have been there when the development was built. Or the option something should have been done differently.
So I'm gonna turn it over to Ron. I spoke with Jan. We spoke actually a few times. And I was the one who gave you the date of March of 2018, where any new platted developments had this option of a line in the back of their yards, is what I've been told from you and Barb, that then they can hook up to that. This particular development was 2004, what it was approved on. We have a lot of good conversations, and just, Jan's main comment was always that she just wanted to protect other homeowners in Otsego. And we talked about coming. I invited her to open forum. So thank you for coming, and Patty, nice to meet you too. Tom?
And maybe before Ron ways in, did the contractors specify kind of where the issue is, where it starts? As far as the water shedding and the fact that it's not shedding away and that it's just being trapped? I mean, I understand the clay issue because over there, I know there's a lot of clay. Over there, so it has a hard time to watershed, but
When we had the contractor that did our initial drain tile come on site in 2017, he said that it was, it's running, we got a walkout, and so it's running down and it's not getting away from the house. So when we did drain tile with the drain spouts and so on and so forth, it's, it's all coming, sitting in the rear of the house. And the pictures that were going around when the contractor came in now in September, he dug out down to the footings and he was down like 4.5 feet, digging that all out, wet, mucky.
I had a
Clay.
foot and a half of standing water on both corners.
Once they got in there, went down.
Dug it all out and there was standing water. Foot
you
and a half.
guys, some pumps are working all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so behind their house is a rear swale, which for a portion of it, a good portion of it runs towards the north, towards that pond that you see to the north where they've run the drain tile. A little bit of the south, it runs south and it runs into a catch basin within the near the road. All these homes have walkout basements. They all have sump pumps. In this area, when they put those houses in, you put sand around them as a base for your foundation. That allows the water to go into it and then the sumps discharge it. Everyone discharging water into that swale, which is not steep, but still drains, that water takes time for it to go downstream. And then that causes that ground to become very wet. So it's a matter of just the type of soils there, and then that the swale is there, but isn't meant to handle sump discharges as much as going on. In 2018, like everybody has stated here before, we put in in our engineering guideline, sump drains behind every house in clay soils. So all the sumps get connected underground to a drain tile system that runs to a storm pond. Prior to that, if you have issues, I mean, everyone that buys a house 2018 and beyond, that's part of your purchase price, is that drain tile that was stuck in the rear yard to handle all this sump water. Because if these are kicking out 20 gallons every half an hour and you got 10 houses pushing water towards that rear swale, it's a lot of water to move, and it's just consistent. So that was the issue, and the city has addressed it.
Why was it not addressed before that?
Well, as we kept getting more and more issues with it, that's when we decided to implement it.
So is the issue essentially because they put sand around and they have the sump pump there that then outlets that essentially all the water is draining into there, and because you have clay all around it, it's just sitting there and they can't push the water out fast enough?
Well, it's releasing the water from the clay into the sand because that's the easiest avenue. Water takes the route of least resistance. Then it gets to there, runs to the drain tile that's wrapped around the house into the sump pump, and then discharges. But if it's discharging and everyone's discharging to that same rear swale, it can build up with plant material over time and not function as well as it had when it originally was in, and that, like, the cattails start to form. But those issues have been addressed. We do have what we call sump drains in every development that's installed after 2018.
It-
Are you guys still having issues then?
It was just fixed.
We just, they just fixed it.
Okay.
And it's amazing how it dried up. I mean, the problem we had, I can't tell you how many contractors out there last summer. And they all wanted to do one thing or the other, but nobody said anything about where's the water gonna go to? Where are we gonna move the water to? And our contractor looked, that was the first thing he did. Where are we gonna put this water? What are we gonna do with this water? He knew exactly what to do and it was done. But it cost us a lot. And we own that pipe now. So we're not real,
You know, and the other thing I think he told us, the contractor told us that clay, it never dried out. I mean, because there was water, we got the water, the sprinkler system, and that's what was causing all the damage to the house. It was constantly pressurizing on the house. And so I have siding damage to 3 sides of my house.
And is the sprinkler then owned by the association or is this
Yeah.
the golf course?
Yes,
association.
HOA, our HOA.
So you've got a lot of people adding water that goes and sits in your backyards.
Well, it's a matter of running. How often I think it runs is a part of the problem too, because we're so low, we're wet all the time. And, so,
Yeah, they are at the north end, so, you know, as it's draining towards the north by gravity, by the swale.
Yep.
It of course runs. And when I did speak to Miss Hooker, is that the route to do is to put a drain tile in. And to get that, the best location to go to is that pond to the north. It's really the only location to go to. And they would have to go across private property, which is the golf course. And they worked with them to get an easement, which is commendable.
So when it was platted, there was no catch basin to the north. I think when Brett sent me that email after he was out in May of 2021, he said that, you know, that was like I'm at 970 and where the holding pond is for the golf course, it was 10 or 15 feet below.
Right.
And that's where we're running it. But why, you know, there was one on the south end. Why wasn't there one put in but down on our end?
Well, as you can see on the contours here, the lines progressively going down there. And like you said, it's 10-foot drop. So when this was designed and put in,
Mhm.
that was determined to be sufficient. It has good slope. It's really just the matter of how many homes are all contributing water with their sumps. When you add that many and that continuously, it just isn't going to work over a long period of time. And as we were finding out, we were finding that there were issues like this where we had flatter slopes and continuous sump pumps. We just decided to put it across the city as a new standard to put the sump drains in all rear yards where it wasn't adjacent to, say, a creek, a wetland, something where the sump lines would be able to be directed to easily. And therefore, you know, we have that requirement now. We don't have those issues anymore. Unfortunately, before that, you know, it's a different story.
everybody out there, and to our disadvantage, everybody out there has water issues. Everybody, and everybody has fixed it. I don't think they've had to spend the kind of money we did, but everybody has fixed their little issue, putting drain tile in or whatever. They've had siding, heaving, and I don't think they ever called and said, hey, this is what's going on. Nobody, I don't know, maybe they did, but
Well, that's what I was wondering with the 2 homes next door here, Ron. Were they having any water issues? Because they're even lower than these 2 women. So, I don't know that they're your neighbors. If you ever talked with them to say, hey, are you having water issues? I'm just curious if they were, because
Which lots are you
To the north.
yeah,
Look at,
oh,
you guys are the yellow.
yep, they're the yellow. So then the 2 next door, kind of on the cul-de-sac there,
on?
because they're even lower yet. So I was just curious if they were having those same issues that you guys were having, if you know.
We did talk to the neighbors before we signed the contract to put in the drain tile, and they declined to join in, so.
So
They
they're
were
not-
fine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But maybe they have no one for, these guys might be taking it all the way from the south. As you said, if they have drain tile, it's pushing it to that swale and then it's trying to go north. So are they the point where
They
it's
might
at?
have had their sump pumps going out this way. They had. their
That's-
sump
yeah.
pumps going out like
Right.
that
So
way.
they're taking it out before it can go down
Right.
the hill.
Right. But yeah, several neighbors they've got cattails too, so they know. And it's been dry the last 2 years, so who knows what's gonna happen out there when we have a wet summer.
Ron, Dan, Dave, any comments on this? How does this? Is there anything?
Well, what
Is
I
there
can say
anything
is,
I guess the other thing, is there anything the city can do for us? I mean, it was very, very expensive. And it's not just home maintenance. It is to be able to market your house ever,
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way we could have sold our house.
as you can see on the damage to the home.
we've had, like I said, we've had other residents from time to time come in. That's why we put this new guidelines, requirements in the engineering manual. They've all completed that at their cost, and new homeowners are paying for the new drain tile behind them when the development puts that in. It's being added to the lot and home costs. So, that's where I left it with Jan, but
Well, I would have rather paid for it up front to go through the mess and the energy, time and energy to solve the problem. And if I'd known what I know now, probably never would have bought the lot. But I think it's, like I said, I wanted to call it to the city, so nobody else hopefully ever has to go through this. It has been draining.
And Jan and I did talk, and as she mentioned too, we kept kind of circling back to talk to the builder. There is a warranty on it. When I talked to Barb in the building department, but Jan has said she declined that for personal reasons, and I've left it at that. So that was what I got from the building department, and Ron had said the same thing. So
Well, like I said, when I was visiting with attorneys, the threshold of damage, of claim for damage, and that it, like I said, they all told me the same thing. I'm at that just kind of below the cap where it doesn't make sense to spend more money for little or nothing back. So
Well, the other thing is, if there's no requirement by the city to do anything, the builder's not gonna do it. Why would they do it? So there was no requirement, and then we get the last two permits in the development. No requirement for the builder to do anything, so he didn't.
and it wasn't a requirement when you got your building permit,
It wasn't.
is what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
we're talking about two different things. My requirement is in the engineering guidelines has to do with the development. The development was put in 2004
Yes.
and 5. The house was built in 2016. So that's building permit. And,
And that's why I contacted Barb
right.
to ask questions with that also. Gentlemen, anything else?
Well, I think they've done the proper things that you can do. I mean, you've explored the possibility of, you've asked the builder to come in and fix it voluntarily. It sounds like they've maybe done some, but then they stopped after that. And then you talk to an attorney about whether you can get them to come out with their legal needs to do something. And that sounds like it's not cost effective. So you've at least looked at all the options that you should look at.
yeah,
I mean, I would say contact the builder again and see if they're willing to help, but if there's no warranty currently in place, and you've talked to attorneys who advised you not to pursue it, you don't have a lot of options left that I'm aware of, but I can't represent you. I only represent the city, so you have to talk with your own attorneys, which you've done, I understand, but you have to make your own decisions on that. I can't tell you what to do.
So when they're building now or pulling a building permit, do they, at what point do they do an inspection? I mean, as far as if they're digging in water, it's bubbling up. Does anybody see that or?
So, my answer, so when I talked to Barb and I talked to you about that too, and you asked about that with digging the foundation, there's nothing noted in your file. Obviously, as they dig foundations, they're dewatering the area. So she said, were they dewatering it and it was dry? That was noted. You said that some of your neighbors said there was actually water around it. There's nothing noted in your building file from 2016. And she said she's spoken with you before too, Barb Williams. Because I asked that question, I said, if there was standing water or water around the foundation, what would be noted? What would have changed? And she said, the building department comes out and they're looking at the foundation. They're required to have not someone from the city do it, but the builder would have had somebody shoot the heights, the lowest floor height and the highest floor height. And that's what they have to match when a building permit is pulled. And that becomes then the issue between the building, your developer, your builder, I'm sorry, and the homeowner. And to their paperwork, they did meet the requirements of what your lowest and highest floors should be. So that's what I was able to pass on to you.
Well, the other thing I'm thinking about here is we were the last two building permits, I think, sold probably. And Ron, you said that with the number of houses, that swell was never going to hold up. So why did you sell building permits knowing that that swell wasn't going to hold up?
At the time that the development was put in and the slopes for that swale were put in behind you, it isn't known that every single house there was going to be discharging as much as it is. I mean, the sump discharges that are occurring are pretty excessive.
And Mayor, that could be a function of, as we've kind of suggested, the irrigation system. That's come up a lot on the west side of the city where people irrigate their lawns as if they're on sand soils and that water just has nowhere to go and stands. So if you overwater in that kind of condition, it can lead to these kinds of problems.
So that should be something that's addressed with the homeowners association on shutting some of this watering off behind these homes too.
Mayor.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next spring and we might have to do that. Hopefully it's going to be fixed and fine and no heaving and so we'll see. Jeff?
Ma'ams. Also, did you mention before this is all part of an HOA?
Yes.
Do you guys also attend those meetings and discuss possible issues with everybody? Like, what do you see for draining? What have you seen for flooding? Any type of stuff like that?
Our HOA meets once a year. They have an annual meeting and there's talk in the neighborhood. Yes, we're discussing informally
Okay.
what's going on in the neighborhood. I mean, we had a lot of neighbors come over and look at our properties and everyone had the same opinion. This is really bad, but because it's our property, we have, we're responsible to fix
Sure.
it.
Reason why I ask is 9 years ago when I moved in my place in Otsego, big rainstorm happened 3 months ago, or 3 months into owning it, and my basement flooded. Well, with that, the sump pump failed to work. Well, it's amazing how all that water came in. I'm on a little higher subgrade compared to where the drainage is, but it still flooded 3 inches my whole basement. Well, of course, the sump pump stuck. Well, this is a different scenario, but my neighbors around the area, I know exactly what happened. Boom, they came and helped me fix it. Yeah, the damage was done, but they knew. So reason why I asked about your HOA with the rain or anything rain like that, one thing I added was gutters to make sure anything water pouring over the back of the house look like Niagara Falls sometimes. So let's get rid of that. If you guys done stuff like that with all this construction, if you did that, great. That's one step. Plus, if you have an informal meeting with your HOA, maybe, hey, how much you water you doing there? Cause it kind of maybe runs toward ours, maybe you have an honorable discussion. If you had gutters, put in, any type of how they did when your construction people did the drainage, higher toward the house and then drain away from your house, maybe landscaping type. Cause I did something like that. It's different, but same. I had a catastrophe, fixed it by gutters and whatnot. I don't have that much anymore. Of course, when we do have rains, it's kind of like sump pump kick in. There it is. Okay, no real dilemma there, but it's always nice to ask, where are there sump pumps draining? Where are there gutters draining? Is it into your yard by accident? Nobody knows without looking. So just something to, I guess, bring up to help avoid one house moving their water toward you guys.
And that, a lot of that has been addressed.
Okay, excellent.
All right, any other comments from council? Otherwise, we will move on. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, we have your photos. We still are under open forum. Do we have any other comments? Okay, we will move on to item 2, to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time? Motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'll move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll move on to item 3, our consent agenda. Motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brittany.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as written.
I second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll move on to our public hearing, item 4.1, our proposed assessment role of unpaid special charges. We have a presentation of the proposed assessment role.
Thank you, Mayor. So the action tonight would be to conduct a public hearing for unpaid special charges. These property owners have been notified by mail and also in the Star News as required by state statute. So these are unpaid citations that have accumulated over the course of the year for code enforcement and property nuisance items. So the exhibit that is on your screen is the list of items that would be recommended by staff for certification. In your packet is also a resolution that would formally adopt this assessment role. From here on out, property owners would still have the ability to remedy the situation by resolving the issue at their property or by paying the citation amounts before they are certified to the county at the end of November. If they do not, then it would be accumulated on their property tax statement for payment in 2023. The interest rate would be 4% as outlined in the resolution, and they are 1-year assessments. So if there are any questions from the council, myself, Dan, or Liz is here tonight as well, can answer them for you. Otherwise, the next step would be to open the public hearing.
Adam, I have one question, just confirming what's on the screen is the same that is in our packet, or has anything been changed from what's in our packet?
There have been no changes since your packet.
Tom?
Mayor, are all these assessments within the past year, or are some of them within the past year and some of them carry over from previous years?
These are all within the past year.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
every homeowner on this list has been notified.
Yes.
Any other questions before I open the public hearing? All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing for the proposed assessment role of unpaid special charges. Again, you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak in regards to the assessment role for the unpaid special charges? I'll ask again if we have any public comment. And a third time, any public comment? At this time, I will close the public hearing and bring it back up to council for consideration of adopting this resolution. Tom,
And Mayor Dan, are all these unpaid citation amounts consistent with our zoning ordinance along with the administration fee?
Correct.
Tom,
And Mayor, unless anyone else has anything further, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-79 approving the assessment roll for unpaid special charges with the assessment roll that was submitted.
Second.
motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5.1, Due North Car Wash. Turn this over to Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. CP Otsego Properties has submitted plans for development of a drive-through car wash at the northeast corner of Parish Avenue, County Road 42 and 85th Street. The council had previously reviewed this application as a concept plan earlier this summer, and the developer moved forward based on that feedback to submit the plans. They're requesting approval of a PUD development stage plan and preliminary and final plat based on the standards established by the zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance. Property is guided toward commercial land uses as part of the city's primary commercial area at County Road 39 and Trunk Highway 101. The property is guided PUD district consistent with the balance of Great River Center development, which allows C3 district uses. Car washes are allowed by conditional use permit within that. So under the PUD district, we're applying those same performance standards, also looking at the design standards that are incorporated as part of that PUD district. Within that corridor along Parish Avenue, you have Wings Financial and Tires Plus to the north, which are more auto-oriented type uses. So the Planning Commission and Council felt that this car wash use would be appropriate at this location, kind of continuing that line of uses. You have office warehouse type uses to the south of 85th Street, the Village Apartments to the east, and Edina Realty and Little Explorers Daycare also along Parsons Avenue, which would be a more village center, traditional downtown type development. So the expectation is that the outlot east of the car wash would develop with uses more similar in nature to those directly adjacent to Parsons. The site plan's been designed to comply with the setbacks of 30 feet from Parish Avenue as well as 85th Street. The setback to the north isn't really applicable given that it's a stormwater basin to the north. Access will be off of 85th Street via right in, right out only due to the median across the traffic lanes. They're also providing for a temporary drive lane along the north side of the site that would be utilized not only by the car wash, but future use of Outlot A as well. That's aligned with the access to the Village Apartments to the east, so there's proper alignment on that roadway. Off-street parking stalls, car washes provide 10 off-street parking stalls. They're showing 11 plus that also includes the ADA stall. They also have the additional vacuum stalls where customers can clean the insides of their car, plus significant stacking space behind the customer kiosks to enter the car wash itself. So that's about 40 cars could be accommodated there. So there's plenty of room within the site without causing any congestion backing into the public street. We worked with the developer also to provide pedestrian connections from the building out to the sidewalks, even though obviously most people are going to come to this site in their car. But there is connectivity to adjacent commercial properties as well. The developer also revised the landscaping plan to provide additional screening to the south, particularly oriented towards the Southgate Estates development to the southwest, and then just enhancing around the car stacking areas as requested. There is also a pedestrian way that goes between the trail on Parish Avenue and the sidewalk that will be on Parson Avenue. That will be retained by the city as an easement and maintained by the Parks and Recreation Department. So it is a 10-foot asphalt trail. It's existing trail on Parish Avenue, and the developer will construct the 5-foot sidewalk on 85th Street, basically to connect from Parish Avenue back to Parsons. That connects to the sidewalks the village put in on the east side of the roadway. They provided the exterior lighting plan compliant with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. One of the issues discussed extensively during the concept plan review was potential noise. We provided information showing that the noise from the facility is within MPCA standards. Also, staff did visit the site and found to be very quiet, both in terms of the operation of the car wash itself and the exterior vacuums, to the extent that you couldn't hear basically off of the property line. Not to mention, they did a nice job washing the car, so. Hours would be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 or 10 p.m. If they choose to stay open that late, although it was indicated at the planning commission meeting, they'd likely close earlier than that. Signs would be reviewed as a separate permit by the zoning administrator. One issue also looked at carefully as part of this proposed development was water usage for this facility. They provide specifications for the water system that were reviewed by the city engineer and the utility operations manager to ensure that there's adequate capacity within the system. And just looking at the fresh water usage from each wash and the recycled system that's also provided, the average daily use is equal to about 10 homes. So both the city engineer and utility operations manager are confident we can accommodate the use within the system. We also included a condition that the discharge to the sanitary system would be subject to performance standards incorporated as part of the city code to ensure that there is an excess of salt being discharged as well. Stormwater management plans were reviewed by the city engineer, and his review is included in your packet. The building is essentially the same as reviewed during the concept plan, using primarily masonry materials with some fiber cement accents and changing color and articulation in the facade and parapet to provide visual interest to the building. Again, the glass wall all along Parish Avenue, so people driving by can see activity in the site and see what's going on. And again, the issue of maintaining those windows was discussed by the planning commission. The developer indicates that they'll obviously implement manual cleaning if necessary, but we're also looking at mechanical means to ensure that that's maintained as well. So the structure fits well within the area in terms of the adjacent buildings and the guidelines for Great River Center as well. The property owner is subdividing the property into the lot for the car wash and one outlot for future development of additional uses. The proposed lot meets the requirements of the PUD district in terms of lot area and width and the ability to accommodate the building within setbacks. They are paying utility availability charges for the platted lot. Those charges would be deferred to the future for outlot A. And then they've provided drainage and utility easements as required. We've also provided the ingress and egress easement for the shared access across outlot A to Parson Avenue. That easement would also allow outlot A to access 85th Street from the driveway being put in place with this first development. Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 6th. There were no public comments. The applicant was present and addressed the questions and comments of the Planning Commission, but they were overall very supportive of the request again and voted to recommend approval. So we've prepared findings of fact for your action tonight that would approve the PUD development stage plan and preliminary and final plat subject to 21 conditions. The city attorney's office has also drafted a site improvement performance agreement that would be adopted by resolution 2022-80.
All right, thanks, Dan. All right, does the developer wish to comment? Okay. All right. Council questions?
Mayor. You wanna go, Tom?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Reading this, I'd like to thank City Engineer Ron, Utility Operations Manager Kurt, and Dan for doing the utilities look that I asked for. Salt dispense and also water use. My big concern with it now would be, since would have 3 car washes, in case we have anything worse than what's been happening in the west and any type of drought, if that's still a word that's thrown around. God forbid something happens again, that it's exceptionally dry, as in bad. What is the contingency plan of, at this time would be all 3 car washes? Is there a way to limit? Is there a way to discuss with business owners to say, well, we have a watering ban as it comes to our citizens with sprinklers. What type of watering ban would we need to enact or have in place to limit car washes or limit time open, or how would that work?
Madam Mayor, we'd
Yes.
have to review the city code as to how we could do that, essentially by them paying the availability charges and the connection charges with their building permit. The city's entitling them as a customer to the water. So we'd have to look at imposing restrictions system-wide. Obviously, the city does with irrigation. But from just a usage standpoint, if you look at the number of recs generated per day for these uses, the restaurants in the city actually use more water.
okay.
So obviously the first point of action would be irrigation and then, you know, water production to match. And that's a lot of what the utility operations manager and the city engineer work with in terms of the water system plan is to look at the existing users on the system, look at the ability and capacity of the water system, not only to meet future needs, to make sure that existing needs are served long-term as well.
Mayor?
Yes.
The use on this, the amount of use on this piece of property is really a drop in the bucket in comparison to what the irrigation needs to go on in the city during a drought time. We have anywhere between 3 and 8 times the winter use on a daily basis, and 8 being probably a max day where we have a lot of irrigation going on in a 95, 100-degree day. So that's where the water use is coming from. And once we put the watering every other day in effect and enforce it, we can drive that down. And that's really where the water goes. This use is not going to cause us any issues with our amount of water being used as a city.
Thank you.
Tom?
Madam Mayor, not to use a pun that Ron did as far as a drop in the bucket, but when they're going to be paying for the recs, that gives them obviously the right to use so many gallons per day. And my guess is this car wash, and I believe they said before in the concept plan review that a lot of that water will be recycled. So they won't necessarily be constantly using water. They'll be using the water and then recycling it and reusing that water again. I did notice, and I believe Dan, you mentioned that it was a temporary drive on the north side there.
Mayor, it's this section right here, so that it's within a permanent easement, but as Outlot A develops, they'd have the ability to reconstruct it and reconfigure it.
So they could move it, but like how?
Well, Mayor, one of the issues is, you know, you have 2 fixed points.
Yeah.
Here and
Yep.
here. So the only part that would be potentially altered would be the south side, whether it's, you know, parking stalls backing into it, islands along it to drive aisles, et cetera.
Well, I think that access point makes the most sense than I think before when it was more to the south. Question I have is then on the ponding, is there any way that, I mean, if we look at an aerial view, I mean, is there any way that we can, I mean, is that a holding pond right there to the drainage? Is there any way that we can combine those two, or does it have to be separate?
Mayor? So the difference is that that's a rate control pond, which was the requirements by the MPCA back when that development went in. Since then, the MPCA has required either infiltration or filtration. So the first inch of runoff has to be infiltrated into the ground before discharge can start to happen. So they put an infiltration pond in sand areas such as this, which will go directly into the ground. So that has to fill up with the first inch of impervious runoff. And then it can discharge to this rate control pond to the north. And that's just meeting
Or it discharges to?
the real pond, to put it plainly. This will probably be a dry pond because it's an infiltration pond. And those are just meeting the requirements of the MPCA,
And who's responsible for maintaining that?
the developer or the property owner.
Mayor, we've seen similar storm basins to this. Guardian Angels has it. We've seen it in other developments where, you know, regional ponds were approved prior to the MPCA regulations, and then the need to provide this additional infiltration causes the need for additional storm basins.
Ever adjacent to each other?
Yes.
And most of the time they are adjacent to each other just because that the piping system and the direction of flow, it works best that way.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one question regards.
Yes.
I mean, signs here I see, the signage as far as by due north car wash, but this can be a silly question, but how would, if Corey wanted to put something on the signage on like 101, you know, to say, do, you know, North Car Wash is so many miles. How does that,
Mayor, when Great River Center was established, they allowed for, I believe it was 2 or 3 pylon signs along 101. Obviously, the one was
One
only
is there.
constructed.
Yeah.
But there still is the ability to put 2 more out there, one of which was to be on the city-owned property in PNF, but basically where Twin City Orthopedic is located was the plan for another one. So if the property owners within the development wanted to get together and propose to plant one of those signs along Highway 101, they could do so.
Would that be an application process?
No, basically just a sign permit.
Because it was already
Because it
approved.
was approved as part of the PUD district.
I always wondered that, so that's why I wanted to ask. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
Well, And Madam Mayor, if
Mhm.
this didn't get approved tonight, I'm guessing November 1st and 2nd looms very large for the developer, given that that's the next Fed meeting. Sorry, say that again. The next Fed meeting, which is what, November 1st or 2nd, they're projected to raise interest rates another 3/4 points.
We're all like, where are you
I didn't
going
know
with
what-
this?
I wasn't following
Like,
you either,
I
so-
was like, regarding
Any
car
business-
wash?
Yeah, wow, serious
Any
business.
business
Mayor.
owner that's going out there and borrowing money. is
The
very,
urgent need for the council to act on this would be winter coming more than
Right.
anything,
Oh,
so.
right. That is one point that most people.
All right. Yes, Tom.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to approve the Great River Center of Otsego 7th Edition preliminary and final plat and PUD development stage plan for due north car wash, subject to the conditions stated in the finding of fact and decision as presented, and adopt resolution 2022-80 approving a development contract.
Second,
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, moving on to city council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I will just say last Saturday was a really good turnout for the pumpkin patch. City staff, I felt, did a great job.
Absolutely. We had 1,300 kids, over 13.
1,307.
Oh,
Dan-
thank you, Dan.
Dan volunteered. His job was the clicker.
Those 7 may have been dogs too.
Yeah,
Connie said.
no adults. That was just clicking children that attended.
No, Connie said everybody in the park.
Oh, everyone in the park. So you
Everyone
just
that
ran
attended.
around and click, click, click.
Everyone that came through the start line.
Dan wasn't running anywhere.
Yeah. Wow, showed some shade.
I just meant that you weren't
He
going
was-
around and
Yeah,
clicking people.
Did.
Well, I would agree. It was a great event. They did a great job. Lots of positive comments.
Yes.
People that live in Otsego, our neighboring community, just, so. It's great.
how many pumpkins do you have left over?
There wasn't actually honestly that many.
Half of a
Half
uh,
of a box of them and
Yeah.
they moved them up behind the building. Yeah,
Sure.
so. They were gonna use some for like the messy art, so there was gonna be some recreation stuff that they were gonna be able to use it for too. And the seniors, so yeah, it really, and the pumpkins were grown locally, so that was a nice added piece too, so.
A question for Dan, about, housing permits and how they're signed off. One thing I'm seeing in my neighborhood is the new neighbor across the street had his yard put in, but they only put in half a yard. For some reason, that was signed, so the backyard was never, cleaned up and never grassed. Also the new area, the new farm, I notice there are people living in their new houses, but some of those are not sodded. Is there something in our the way you finish the brand new houses and sign off on that, is there something that says, okay, a complete yard? If the new owner has, maybe they're getting sprayed yard, I don't know, but it's just, I remember talking to the neighbor across the street from my places, they're like, I watched them sod it, I'm kind of going, why are they doing the backyard? And then they're even saying, yeah, you gotta, I go, like, talk to your realtor, make sure, whatever, and the yard wasn't
It's
sodded in the back. And with that reason why, and then also when I drive through the new development, some yards aren't sodded and people are living in there and it looks like they're whatever, doing their thing. And also, I guess another comment would be driveways. You know how they have that little, when you have a driveway and it's got that little cutout on the bottom, I can see when houses are around 150 to 200,000. Is there anything that says we have to have a complete driveway now they're above 400,000? Is there anything like that? So I guess, two questions.
Mayor, so
Yes.
the city requires the front yard be
Front
sodded,
Okay.
the backyard seeded, and the seed has to be established. So at the time of building permit, escrow is collected, just to make sure that's done. This time of year, if it's getting late and sod's not available, that basically the city just holds that escrow. Same thing for the driveways, if they can't get them in because of weather, there's an escrow the city holds to ensure that's completed. The width of the driveway is specified in the engineering manual, at 30 feet within the public right of way and can spread out from that. The reason it's narrowed is to limit the access points, minimize impervious surface, and then also when the city goes through to do improvement projects so that it minimizes the cost to the city to basically a standard amount per driveway.
Oh, okay.
If it gets to be 40 feet, that just adds cost. The city has to then replace as part of its project. So that's the reason why people start with the 24 to 30 and then branch out further to their garage.
Okay.
And you'll see, in the claims, that's what it'll say refund, and it's like a $3,000. So all those checks that we signed, most of them are either to the builder if they put the lawn in, or if it's, let's say you build it, but then you're putting in your own lawn, then it goes to you as the homeowner.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So, and it's lawn and trees.
Right.
Two trees.
And
Two trees.
the grass
Thank you.
and the grass. And the floor.
All right. Any other council reports and updates? Reminder tomorrow night, 5:30.
Correct.
It's probably in your update reminder. too. All right. If there's nothing more from city council reports and updates, we'll move to staff reports and updates. Sabrina.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two updates, I guess three, if we want to give each of the new employees their own update. Jake started utility billing last Monday, so he's been started right away after approval from the week before, so he was ready to get at it. And then also we have Matt, who joined as our mechanic. So it's been great to have that position filled, I know, for just as the season comes with snowplows. And then last but not least, park maintenance 2 closes on Wednesday for that position. And we've received 14 applications so far already. So it's been a really good turnout already with still a few more days. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. No update this evening.
All right. Audra.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. I stole the thunder. I
stole
said
it.
that. I'm sorry. Just want to remind everyone.
I just want to remind everybody that absentee voting is going on at City Hall and also available through the mail.
How's that turnout going?
It's going fair. I think just like this morning, we processed 50 applications. So it's keeping us busy.
All right. Dave.
Nothing to report. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, Dan.
Mayor, no update.
Ron?
No updates, Mayor.
Wow. Jason's got something, I'm sure of it. Good evening.
Why do you say that?
Oh,
No-
no, you had
no
your notebook. That's
no-
why I saw you. You came
No
with a
speeding
notebook.
tickets the last couple weeks. Honestly, I'll try to be quick. Really the only update I want to just give council is, as you know, I'm trying to keep keep a relationship open with the North Star Regional Treatment Center at Riverwood. So I just kind of did a quick little analysis of their call volumes. So the numbers have gone up as far as the call volumes, but it just kind of shows that they're just getting clients that are finally fully staffing or fully kind of inhabiting. So I'm not seeing anything concerning at this point. We've had a really good relationship and they've really worked with us. If we have questions or information that we need from staff, they've done a really good job with getting that information to us to make our job that much easier than sitting there having to go through subpoenas or something or otherwise. So that's gone well so far. I have a meeting scheduled with one of the program directors coming up here, and we're gonna just kind of hash out, you know, if there is anything that we can be doing better. Otherwise, haven't had any issues, haven't had any complaints from anybody in the area about any sort of problems whatsoever. So and that's important to me.
As you said, the calls have picked up. Is it that is it a transport? Is it medical transports or it's
3 out of 4 calls are going to be or 75% of the time is going to be a medical related call.
Okay.
We have had calls that are related to, you know, sometimes they need assistance in escorting somebody off the property or they've been kicked out of the program. We haven't made arrests out of there, but I mean, you could go over to Target and we probably made the same, you know, amount of arrests at Target as we have anywhere, you know, so
okay?
it's not necessarily saying that that's a bad place or we're going to make arrests anywhere. And like I
Sure.
said, I haven't seen anything that's making me get alerted to the place at this point. So beyond that, that's really all I have tonight. Sorry.
Tom?
Madam Mayor, when you look at kind of the previous use and the issues that you saw there with the previous use and the ability to address those issues versus today, the issues and the ability to address those issues, how would you compare the two? It's an enormous difference. When it was a, you know, kind of an extended stay, almost a motel, the call volume was, we were there every single day. We were dealing with people we were unfamiliar with, but at the same time, there was a point where it was the who's who of troublemakers in the northeast part of Wright County. Having more of a formal staffing and having a program and people that obviously care about the rehabilitation of people there has made a huge difference so that we understand who's there. They have pretty strict policies as far as what behavior is allowed, what isn't allowed. I cannot, I guess, stress enough what that place was there for a while for us to have that changed. Need this to say it was a big positive improvement. Yes.
Hey, Jason, I just have a question. Have you seen or caught that guy in the black Camaro with the damage?
The Camaro or the Challenger?
It's a
Or
Challenger.
sorry.
Yeah.
It suddenly just kind of fell off the radar.
Did it?
So I don't know if the damage got fixed or all of a sudden they put license plates on. It's interesting. Every little black Challenger that is in the area is unfortunately having a squad car follow them for an extended period of time until you can determine whether or not it's not our suspect. But haven't seen it for about a week.
Thank you.
And that wasn't just in Otsego, that was countywide.
Yeah.
That's mainly Monticello. Questions for me? Otherwise, that's all I have.
Anyone have anything? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If we don't have anything else, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting is ended. Thank you all for attending. We'll see you soon.